Welcome to E-Pathshala lecture series on computer science. This module is about visualization. We will be looking at the visualization definition and the history of visualization in this module. So, the learning objectives for this module are: first we will be talking about the various concepts of visualization. Next we will be looking at what a visualization pipeline is, what are the various modules in the visualization pipeline, and then we will be learning about the history of visualization, and finally to end up we will be looking at the various applications of visualizations. If you look at what a visualization is, there is an old Chinese proverb which says that a picture is more than 1000 words. It is also given as a picture is worth more than 1000 numbers. So, according to this saying, it says that if we look at a picture, it is possible for us to learn lot of information when compared to just listening to certain audible information. So, here is an example for visualization. If you just look at this picture, it is possible for us to infer a lot of information from this picture. It looks like the information that we can visualize from this picture are, it looks like a swirl. There are smaller swirls at the edges. It has different shades of red at the outside and green at the inside. The smaller circles are purple highlights. The green has also got different shades. Each swirl is composed of smaller ones, and the swirls are located in a clockwise direction. Inside the object there are also red highlights. Those are different shades of red also. The green shades vary in the form of a fan, while the purple ones are more or less unicolor. The green shade gets darker towards the outside of the fan. So, these are certain information that we can infer just by looking at this particular picture. But we can also map this picture to some kind of data so that it is possible for us to get certain insight out of this picture. That is what visualization is all about. It is not only just showing a picture, it is also a perfect mapping of data with respect to the picture that is shown on the screen. So, by performing this kind of mapping, it is also possible for us to infer or gain a lot of insight from the given picture basically. So, this is another example for visualization. Seeing is what believing is. There is a saying which says that seeing is what believing is. We observe and draw conclusions from what we see basically. Seeing is also understanding. So, there are lots of visual illusions that tend to understand concept in a different way. So, if we look at the image that is shown here, there are lots of lines. If you look at the horizontal lines, it may seem to us that these two horizontal lines are not parallel lines, but it seems as though they may meet at a particular point. But actually these two horizontal lines are exactly parallel lines. Because of this visual illusion, it shows as though these two lines are not parallel with each other. This is what a visual illusion is. So, we cannot believe what we exactly see, because in certain cases there may be some kind of illusions which may mislead us in understanding the entire concept. So, basically if you look at what visualization is, it is a transformation of data or information into pictures. So, it is basically a transformation of data or a mapping of data into some form of picture, which we call it as visualization. So, it also engages the primary human sensory apparatus, and that is a vision. The primary human sensory apparatus is a vision, and this vision is engaged in the process of visualization. It is also called as a tool and it also helps us in learning or understanding certain concepts. Visualization helps us in learning or understanding certain concepts in a proper way. It is a compact representation of information, for example numbers. Instead of representing the numbers in a numerical format, it is possible for us to represent the numbers in a graphical format so that it is easier for the user to understand what it represents. We can also call visualization as a tool which carries the information along with it. So, that is why it is called as carrier of information. Visualization is also a tool which acts as a carrier of information. So, the basic definition that is given by Card, he says that visualization is the use of computer supported interactive visual representations of data to amplify the cognition. So, the use of computer supported, usually we try to create visualization with the help of computers, the visualizations are going to be more interactive in nature. It is possible for the end user to interact with the pictures that are shown on the screen. They are all visual representations of certain form of data. That data can be in any form. It can be a scientific data, it can be an experimental data, it can be a numerical data, or it can be some form of data that is represented in the visual form. And finally, the visualization helps us to amplify our cognition, that is our knowledge. So the entire definition goes like this: the use of computer supported interactive visual representations of data to amplify the cognition. This is what visualization is. If you look at information visualization is given as the use of computer supported interactive visual representations of, instead of data, here they call it as abstract data to amplify cognition. So the data is in an abstract format in the case of information visualization, whereas a normal visualization, the data is some form of numerical data or scientific data or experimental data which is in the raw format and which can be easily mapped onto a visual form. Whereas in the case of information visualization, the data that is being captured is an abstract format, and thereby it becomes very difficult for us to map the entire data onto a visual format in the case of information visualization. These are the definitions that are given by Card. So if you look at the basic visualization model, the model is given like this. We have the data is being mapped onto a visual form. So there is a perfect mapping from the data onto the visual form, and this visual form is being transferred. There is a visual transfer to the human being, and with the help of the knowledge that, with the help of the visual transfer, it is possible for the human being to understand or get certain insight about the data. So there is a perfect mapping from the data to the visual format, and from the visual format, the visual is being transferred to the human being, and the human being can infer certain insight out of the visual that he has seen. That is a data insight that he acquires. So as I said, in the visualization process, the data is being mapped onto a visual structure. So if you look at this mapping the data onto a visual structure, these mappings are called as visual mappings, and these mappings are supposed to be computable in nature. That is, they are all of mathematical mappings where the visual is a function of, the visual is represented in the form of a function of data. The visual mappings are also comprehensible in the sense they are invertible in nature. It is possible for me to convert the data into the visual format, and the reverse is also possible. It is possible for me to convert the from the visual, it is possible for me to get the data what exactly it is. So the visual mapping should be a comprehensible one or an invertible one. And another one interesting aspect of this visualization is the creativeness. The visual that we see on the screen should be creative in nature. So thereby the visual mappings have all these three characteristics within itself. That is, the visual mapping should be computable in nature, mathematically computable in nature. It should be comprehensible in nature in the sense that it is reversible, which means that I can convert the visual from the data format or the data from the visual format, and it should be creative in nature also. So if we look at this visualization pipeline, in the visualization pipeline, we have the raw data or the information, and applying certain data transformation techniques, these raw data are converted into some kind of structured data which we call them as data tables. Later on, we try to apply the visual mapping onto these structured data, and these data tables are once again converted into visual structures. And finally, over these visual structures, we try to perform or apply certain view transformations so that these visual structures are converted into certain form of visualizations, or various views are being shown. And from these views, the end user, it is possible for the end user to attain or gain certain knowledge out of these visualization. The end user can also perform lots of tasks over all these modules. The end user can easily interact at any stage of the visualization. It is possible for the end user to interact with the visualization either at the data transformation stage or at the visual mapping stage or at the view transformation stage. So usually there will be a lot of interaction of the end user in the view transformation stage, where the end user can actually vary the views and he can see what exactly it is happening. So that is the visualization pipeline basically. See, if you look at the visualization flavors, all the visualization flavors or the types can be classified into 3 types. The first one is a scientific visualization, second is a data visualization, and the third one is an information visualization. In scientific visualization, there are lots of user interfaces, the data representing or processing algorithms are being used, and lots of visual representation techniques are also used in the case of scientific visualization. The data that we use for scientific visualization or the data that we receive from certain kind of scientific experiments that are being conducted. So in scientific visualization, we can see that we have lots of numerical data or experimental data wherein we try to apply lots of data representation or processing techniques or algorithms to convert these data into certain visual representative formats, and we try to create certain user interfaces so that it is possible for the end user to interact with these data set or with the visual structures. That is scientific visualization. In the case of data visualization, the examples given are, they include financial data and statistical methods. So in the case of data visualization, the data set that we use is going to be very huge. So there will be huge amount of numerical data set that are being used and which gets converted into certain visual structures, and they are being shown to the end users in the form of visualizations. So these include the data set can be a financial data set, or it can be some form of statistical data set that are available in the case of data visualization. The next one is the information visualization. In the information visualization, the data set that we use are going to be abstract data set. Say for example, the www documents or the file structures or the arbitrary kind of relationship that exists between various websites or web pages in a website. These are all certain examples of abstract data set, wherein if the visual is going to represent these kind of abstract data set, then it is called as information visualization. So basically the entire visualization flavors are classified into 3 different types, like scientific, data visualization and information visualization. So next is the history of this visualization. If you look at the history of visualization, it started in the year 1137, where the earliest known map was introduced. China was represented in the form of a map, and that came into existence in the year around 1137. Then later on, this got extended, and the map was later extended into some kind of star chart, which was represented by a person named Johann Bayer in the year 1603. And later on in the year 1637, it got extended into some kind of Cartesian coordinate system. So Descartes is the name of the person who had invented this. In the case of Cartesian coordinate system, the entire data set is represented in the form of x and y axis or as Cartesian coordinates. And then an extension to this in the year 1686, the first meteorological chart was formed by a person named Halley, which is also, the chart is also named as Halley's chart. So this is an example, given as an example of this Halley's chart. This Halley's chart shows the meteorological information, like the kind of winds that flow across a certain region. The trade winds and other winds that flow across a certain region are shown in this particular figure in the form of a visual structure. So this came into existence in the year 1686. And then later on in the year 1693, the mortality tables of city of Breslau was an first attempt to correlate 2 different variables, and this was also introduced by the person named Halley. An extension to this, approximately in the year 1750, the data set is represented in the form of contour lines, where heights of regions are being represented in the form of contour lines, which came into existence in the year 1750. Then later on in the year 1817, isotherms were drawn, where the regions where the temperatures are going to be the same, those regions are being joined using certain lines which are called as isotherms, and they form a chart which is called as an isothermal chart. Similar to that, in the year 1829, isochromatic lines are drawn. Isochromatic lines are the lines which try to connect all the regions which have same color information. Color can represent anything. It can represent the height, it can represent the temperature of a particular region, or it can represent anything, any attribute that is related to a particular region. And if the similar color lines are joined together, it forms something called as isochromatic lines. Then later on, isobars came into existence. These are also set of lines which are supposed to connect regions which have same pressure information. So isobars chart are also drawn. So these all came into existence, wherein the entire set of visualization is represented in the form of a two-dimensional data, where the entire thing is represented in the form of a Cartesian coordinate system, where you have the x-axis as well as the y-axis. Then later on, this two-dimensional data set got incremented to 3D imaging data set, where along with the x and y information, we have the z information or the depth information also taken into account. So in the year 1895, X-rays invented by Roentgen came into existence, and thereby it is possible for us to represent the 3D images or the depth information along with the x and y axis. Then this got extended. So in 1898, stereo X-rays came into existence, which was introduced by Mackenzie and Davidson. These kind of stereo X-rays were helpful in locating the foreign bodies in human beings. Then in 1938, X-ray sections or slices, 3D slices were introduced. In 1912, X-ray crystallography was introduced by the person named Lowe, wherein the position of atoms in the crystals were used to represent the X-rays. Then in 1949, this air defense people used or tracked the position of aircraft by radar and analyzed the results and display the entire result onto the CRT. So this was introduced in the year 1949. Later on, this got extended to sketch pads, which was invented by a person named Sutherland, and it was introduced in the year 1965, where it is possible to have some kind of interactive graphical drawing system. These sketch pads were of huge size, they were very big and they were expensive in nature. People used it to draw some graphical drawings so that the entire drawing can be digitized and it can be taken inside the system, and helpful for end users to interact with such kind of drawings. So then in the year 1987, these got extended, and the people were able to come across personal or exploratory graphics, where it is possible for a scientist to enable or to gain more knowledge by interacting with the data. Peer graphics were introduced, where the scientists are able to show the information for the colleagues, and it is possible for the scientists to collaborate with each other and perform their experiments. Presentation graphics were introduced, using which it is possible for us to communicate the informations and results, where high quality, fully automated information can be communicated in the form of presentations to their peers. And then publication of visualization is also possible by enabling others to use the data, where it is possible for us to share the entire visual structure, and others can also use the entire data as it is. So then in the year 1983, augmented reality came into existence, where this was invented by the person named Myron Kruger, where it is possible for the users to interact with the system as though the users are also part of the entire system as such. So here we can see two people standing inside a room where they are interacting with the entire system. The two people are also taken, they can actually feel the entire system as such with the help of their hands, and the two people are also taken into they are also scanned and they are also taken into the system. They will have a feeling as though they are wandering inside the entire atmosphere as such. Then volumetric data sources were being produced. Volumetric data sources were actually produced by certain type of scanning devices, or these act as some kind of mathematical or simple measuring devices. So with the help of scanning devices, it is possible for us to scan the data and get the entire data set being visualized. Some of the application tools that are usually coupled are haptic feedback devices. Using these kind of haptic feedback devices, it is possible for the end users to feel or touch the entire visual structure as such. Stereo output can also be produced. Stereo output is nothing but by the help of some kind of 3D glasses, it is possible for us to view the entire information in the form of a 3D, three-dimensional object. And then it is also possible for us to have some kind of interactivity in the case of stereo output devices. The users can also interact with the three-dimensional objects that are being displayed, and rendering these kind of three-dimensional objects becomes very difficult. There are various kind of rendering algorithms that are actually used to render such types of devices. So some of the medical scanners that we have at present are MRI, CT, PET, ultrasound, and SPECT. These are certain kind of scanners that are helpful to scan the inner regions of the body or interiors of the body, and we can see that there are various visual structures that are being produced here. So these are certain examples of scanning domains. These are certain examples for scanning applications where this scanning is actually used in the primary education to make people understand what is inside the entire body. This is an example of the internal structure of a frog that is being displayed. So it is possible for the teacher to make the students understand what internally the frog contains with the help of these kind of scanners. So these are also helpful in the case of medical education for surgery and for anesthesia. When the physicians or the surgeons, they try to perform certain kind of surgery, or they try to explain certain concepts to their students, these kind of scanning devices will be very helpful to get the internal structure of the entire human body, or to get the internal structure of various parts of the human body. So it can also illustrate the illustration of medical procedures to the patient can also be done using these kind of visualizations. So these are certain scanning applications. If you look at these applications, there are surgical simulations for treatment planning. We have telemedicine. Telemedicine is one kind of application area wherein the doctor will be sitting in a different location and the surgeon will be sitting in some other different location. So the doctor is an expert who is going to explain the entire procedure to the surgeon who is going to do the surgery. The surgeon will be listening to it, and accordingly he will be given, as per the instructions given by the doctor, the surgeon will be performing the surgery at a remote location. That is what the telemedicine is. Then we have interoperative visualization and brain surgery, biopsies, etc. can be performed with the help of these kind of scanners. These kind of scanners are also helpful for industrial purposes, for quality control and for security purposes. These kind of scanners are actually useful in industries. These kind of scanners are also helpful in games to give certain kind of realistic 3D effects. So some of the game devices has 3D kind of scanners. Maybe in the case of Xbox, we have something called as Kinect, which tries to scan the entire body of the person, whoever is standing in front of it. And the entire person is also scanned, and he is also taken as an object inside the system, so that the user will have a feeling as though he is playing. The user can actually physically play standing in front of the system, and his entire body will be scanned and his movements will be scanned, and they are considered as physical movements, and they will be taken inside the system, so that the user will have full interactivity, or will have a feeling as though he is playing the game physically. So these are certain applications of scanning. Other than this, we have scanning in the domain of we have biological scanners, we have electronic microscopes, we have confocal microscopes. So all these are some of the examples of scanning devices which are helpful to understand the inside parts of the human beings or some kind of microscopic organisms. So some of the applications are paleontology kind of applications, whereas it is possible for us to inspect the entire fossil using these kind of biological scanners. It is also possible for us to understand the analysis, or we can perform some kind of microscopic analysis with the help of these kind of scanners. So these are certain applications that can be performed. Then the computational, other than scanners, we have scientific computation domain. In scientific computation domain, it is possible for us to perform some kind of mathematical analysis. So if we look at these mathematical analysis, some kind of say partial differential equations or ordinary differential equations can be represented in the form of visualizations, so that it is easier for the end user or the reader to understand what exactly it is. Finite element analysis can also be performed with the help of, can be made to be better understood by the end user by showing it in the form of a visual. And then we have something called as supercomputer simulations. Simulations can also be performed using these supercomputers, which can show the entire simulation in the form of a visual structure. So by looking at these visual structure, it is possible for the end user to gain a lot of knowledge. Other application areas of this kind of scientific computation lies in the field of computational fluid dynamics and computational field simulations. So if you look at these two figures, here you can see there is a tubular structure wherein you can represent the entire flow of the fluid within this tubular structure, how it happens, and what happens to the entire flow of the fluid within the tubular structure can be shown in the form of a simulation. Similarly, we can show field simulations as visualizations also. Other than this, we have vector field applications wherein you can also model the entire weather. The weather scenario can be modeled and it can be shown as a weather modeling visualization. Then we have vector field. There are various challenges that come along with the vector field visualization, where we need to actually project the entire dimension, or say n dimension of the data onto the screen. So it should be possible for us to detect certain features like swirls or vortex cones. These are certain challenges that exist in the field of vector field visualization. Then there is another kind of application which is called as streamlines, wherein the curves that connect all the particle positions are shown in the form of a visual structure. So if you look at these streamlines, it is the streamlines help in displaying. These are a local technique, because we can only visualize the flow directions initiated from one or a few particles. When the number of the streamlines is increased, the scene becomes more cluttered. So if you look at the visual, you can really understand that as the number of streamlines increases, the entire visual structure is more cluttered. And the computation is also highly expensive, and mathematically, totally, the number of computations that need to be performed is also very high in this case. So other than this, we have measuring domains, which is used in the case of spacecraft, seismic devices and statistical data, where we try to measure lots of information. Say the weather information and the atmospheric studies can be carried out, the planetary and the interplanetary explorations can be carried out, oil, precious metal exploration, earthquake studies, or some kind of statistical analysis. All these can be performed by the help of information visualization. So this is a taxonomy of the entire visualization. This gives an idea of what visualization is all about. If you look at the data, it is you have the scanners or the sensors or the cameras which tries to capture the entire volumetric data. They are being sampled or scanned, and they are fed into the system in the form of numerical data. Later these numerical data are mapped on to some kind of geometrical models, and with the help of computer graphics, it is possible for us to show the entire geometrical model in the form of a image, which we call it as a visual. From the supercomputers also, it is possible for us to extract the entire simulation, convert it into the form of the data, and the data is once again fed in the form of displayed in the form of a visualization. Similarly, video recording from the images, it is from the visuals or from the images, it is possible for us to either show it as a display to the end user, or we can capture the entire image in the form of video recording. So this is the entire taxonomy of visualization basically. So if you look at what is the difference between visualization, graphics and imaging. In the case of graphics, they say it is making the pictures, the digital image synthesis, sampling and illumination all comes under graphics, whereas in the case of imaging, it is only enhancing or analyzing the 2D and 3D images, whereas visualization is exploration or transformation or viewing data in the form of image. So this is the difference between image, graphics and visualization. If you look at the relation to other fields, the relation of visualization with respect to other fields, we can see that visualization is helpful in computational geometry. It is used in psychology or cognition to gain certain knowledge. It is visualization is used as a user interface tool. It is helpful to, it needs the hardware component as such. It is helpful in applied mathematics. Visualization is used in computer vision. It is also used in signal or image processing. It is also used in optics. So these are various application areas or relationship of visualization with respect to various other fields. So to summarize, in this module we have looked at what is the definition of visualization as given by Card, where the end user is able to extract or gain insight out of the data that is shown in the form of a visual structure. We have also looked at the history of visualization, how the entire process has started right from the starting of maps till today, till the n-dimensional representation of images. Then we have also looked at the broad types of visualization, wherein we were looking at scientific visualization, data visualization and information visualization. And finally, we have been looking at various application domains of visualization, where visualization has been used in medical imaging, has been used in finite state analysis, has been used in the case of physics, psychology, and it is also used in illumination or optical engineering. These are certain application domains of visualizations. Thank you.